Welcome to The Human Edge. Today's guest is Manny Patel. Manny is CEO of Jiva.ai. They are building a platform on which other businesses can build their own AI. It's really kind of democratising the future of AI. This was a really, really fascinating conversation, taking in spirituality, taking in what it means to be human, the incongruence that Manny feels between being a scientist and being spiritual in terms of what he's creating. We talked about his transition from CTO, where he was when he co-founded the company, to CEO, and the massive insecurities he had and how he's learning to overcome them. We talked a lot about failure. Manny was incredibly candid about his failures as a CEO, as a husband, as a dad. I really appreciate Manny's honesty in the conversation. I loved it. I hope you do too. And if you do, please share it with everybody you know. And of course, please subscribe, which would be massively helpful. Thank you. So you're CEO of Jiva. What is Jiva? What do you do? And why is it important?
Yeah, so we're at stage 2 of 3 stages at Jiva. The ultimate goal, like many AI companies, is to be able to build general intelligence. But to get there, we need 2 different things. One is the ability for AIs to plan. So for AIs to understand how to break down problems in the same way that humans do. And the second is the ability for AIs to actually merge knowledge together in a way that is natural and not kind of forced in the way it is currently. So we're on stage 2, which is actually creating a no-code AI platform. We put this in front of our clients. They can create AIs of any level of complexity with this particular platform. And what's happening in the background is our AI is learning how humans are actually doing it. So that's getting that planning step. And then we've already got the IP around how models are merged together as well to expand knowledge. And soon you'll be seeing some output around how we're creating more generally intelligent machines.
Why is the goal, and not just for Jiva, for all AI businesses, why is it general intelligence?
Yeah, I guess.
And what does that
Or
mean?
super intelligence, yeah. So either you're going for a system that behaves and acts and reasons like a human, or actually does it better. That's what we call super intelligence. And that's just been the nirvana for 30 years. How do you get a machine to be like a human or better than a human? You know, that's why we have all these movies, Terminator, and the generally negative movies about AI.
And we'll come on to that.
But I guess in a way our imagination is limited, right? We're already using, what might be called a predecessor to those kind of AIs to do some really, really useful stuff. Like ChatGPT is a really good example. We're using machine learning in healthcare to do diagnostics. We're using machine learning to do facial recognition, and all sorts of stuff that actually has both positive and negative effects. But what we're really trying to do is trying to find a digital companion, right? I think we're trying to find a way to get machines to be on our level so that we can be more productive, so that we can do those things that we really want to do that we can't currently do. Can't send a human up to, Mars at the moment. Actually, pretty easy to send a robot that can act like a human and behave like a human and record information better than a human, reason like a human. Put that thing on a rocket and leave it up there for a few years and get it to come back. It doesn't need to breathe oxygen. You don't need to worry about all those difficulties around sending actual organisms to Mars. It makes a lot of sense.
On the kind of ethical considerations with that, like creating things that aren't human but act as if they're human. So we were talking before about consciousness and what consciousness is. If you're imbuing a thing with consciousness, don't we then need to think about how we are treating them, how we are interacting with them? So just chucking them up to Mars may not be a humane thing to do.
That's a really Star Trek question. Like, you remind me of what was it called?
Don't say Mr. Spock.
No. What was that? So Red Dwarf.
Okay.
When he goes, I'll cut the Star Trek crap right, and it's too early in the morning. No, you're right. So I don't. So I'm at a weird juncture where I'm a technologist, I'm a scientist. I've been doing this for lots of years. I kind of diverted a little bit in the middle, but it is going back to my roots from in my research. And from that perspective, I've got to think of it in a very scientific kind of way. But then I'll also I'm a fairly spiritual person, I would say. I'm not ultra religious or anything, but I do kind of try to adhere to sort of the religious aspects of what I was born into. And so I've got this weird incongruence where I do find it hard to reconcile whether we can actually create an artificial intelligence that is on the same level as a human, conscious like a human, that you can call it a life and therefore has a soul, and therefore needs to be treated just like you might treat not just a human but an animal. Say, do you treat it with the same level of respect? It's an interesting question. I'm at the point currently where I think we can simulate consciousness. This would be possible at some point close in the future, that we'd be able to simulate consciousness that is on a human level. Is that real consciousness? That's a really difficult question to answer, and we have things beyond the Turing test that we can probably apply to decipher whether something is conscious. But if something is perfectly simulating consciousness, you'd never know. And does it actually matter? Exactly. Does it actually matter that it's real consciousness or not? It's a good question. The kind of example where you're sending something up to Mars, I don't think we're talking about true artificial intelligence that we would send up there, but something that's smart enough to do the things that it needs to do.
And how far away from general intelligence do you think we are now? Maybe it's not possible to say, but...
Yeah, I think so. It depends who you ask. Personally, I think we're still a good 10, 15 years away from being able to get to that point. I think we are all going down a rabbit hole at the moment with large language models, ChatGPT. There was a post on LinkedIn I saw just a few days ago where there was a bit of a panic at one of these large language model type companies where one of the models was responding in a weird kind of way, and it was saying, I'm panicking. It was responding in that kind of way, and it felt very lifelike, right? But in the end of the day, a large language model, generative AI, is simulating language, right? Language is a construct that we've created as a medium of communication, right? It's a protocol.
Yes.
It's not equated to intelligence. So we're 95% of AI companies and R&D is going down this rabbit hole of large language models and how to make them more efficient, blah, 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 blah. But actually, that is not intelligence. That is just how you create language. We have to start thinking about how do you actually create
intelligence.
The intelligence, the consciousness bit. Right? How do you get a machine to think like a human and act like a human and be better, actually, in some respects?
So, are you not concerned? Because we talked about Terminator before. Are you not concerned? Because in my mind, I can catastrophize to my heart's content thinking about conscious, intelligent machines, because we've read about them, we've seen about them, we know or we think we know what the dangers are.
Yeah.
Are you not worried about that stuff?
No, not in my lifetime. I'm not. Look, if I were to sit down on my laptop and somehow get super intelligence running on my platform, you just pull the plug, right? if it becomes a bit dangerous.
Is it that simple?
Yeah, I think so. You have to be able to give a piece of software some actuation, something that it can physically do for it to be actually harmful, right? There's nothing to say you wouldn't be able to do some nefarious things. But actually, if you're saying it's intelligent, do you expect an intelligent being, the first thing it's going to do is wipe out humanity? I mean,
not immediately.
Yeah, it doesn't strike you as the first thing it thinks about doing, right? It's not what we do. 99.9% of humans are not people that like to wipe out other people, right? So why would we assume that an artificially intelligent thing would? I don't really get the equivalent. So no, I don't think it's anything like that. I think we like to dramatize about it. It makes a good movie, and I think AI's got a bad rap in the past because of that.
Yeah.
But no, that doesn't seem real to me.
So if it's not real, what are the, and if we are able to develop a super intelligence, what would we? Well, I was going to say what would we have it do, but maybe it will get to the stage where it won't be subservient to us. It will be thinking and creating of its own accord.
Yeah, I think just to merge your last question and the current one together. So I think the catastrophe actually will be how it affects human society. Because let's just say we're able to create a super intelligence, and let's just say we're able to containerize that into physical kind of robots, essentially, or whatever it might be. People are going to lose jobs, right? They're not all people, but many people are going to lose jobs. And if we're not able to find a way for them to move on and skill up in something else, then there's going to be a problem, right? And that's going to cause societal problems down the road. It's going to cause friction with people, governments saying, well, we'll ban AI systems, etc., to make things more cohesive in society. I think that's where the actual danger is. I think you're talking on another level when a super intelligence is now thinking for itself to do things for itself. It's thinking, I need to earn a living, right? It's not thinking putting food on the table, doesn't need it, but I need to earn a living. I need to do something with my intelligence. I need to not be bored. Because you'd expect an intelligent thing to get bored if it's not doing anything. That's probably a marker of intelligence. It's going to become an artist and it's going to knock out Leonardo da Vinci level art, 500 times a day. We're going to have to start thinking about, well, what does that mean for us in terms of what's left for us to do? What is meaningful for us? These are not very dissimilar conversations from what was happening 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s when computers were becoming more prominent. I'm not saying it's the same shift. It obviously is a bigger shift we're talking about with artificial intelligence. But throughout history, we've imbibed technology. Throughout history, we've got better at doing certain things, and we've just moved on. Somehow we found a way. Right? And I suspect that's probably what's going to happen. I don't know what those people, the people that lose their jobs, I don't know what they'll end up doing, but I'm sure they'll find some way of upskilling to do something. A really good example of that actually is in 2000, 2001, 2002, dot-com bust. There were loads of HTML developers on the market. They were getting paid a lot of money. And suddenly you got Wix and WordPress, basically do-it-yourself type of website builders. You didn't need an HTML developer anymore to build a website. And a gazillion companies were doing it. What did those guys do? They just went off and did CSS development or JavaScript development, or they upskilled themselves to do something new. So I suspect, I hope that is what will happen. Yeah,
I hope so too. You mentioned before about that incongruence between the kind of the scientists in you and the spiritual side of yourself. We were talking before about so you're Hindu, right, and what the Hindu beliefs around consciousness, which I found absolutely fascinating. Can you talk a little bit more about that in terms of what consciousness looks like from the spiritual side of things?
Yeah. So obviously Hindus believe in karma and reincarnation and that kind of thing, and when we talk about consciousness, we talk about levels of consciousness. So, if you look into our scriptures, there are certain beings like humans that are not human, demonic beings, angelic beings, humans themselves, and so on and so forth. And they all have a certain level of consciousness, and we can just say the level of consciousness is basically the same, even though the bodies are different, the species are different. And when we talk about species, actually, we're talking about level of consciousness as you go up from a human down to, let's say, rocks, right? You have decreasing levels of consciousness. So when we say, we look at this table or we look at a rock, we look at it as an inanimate object. Actually, based on our philosophy, consciousness permeates everything. Right? There is no space in all the cosmos and all the many universes that exist that is not permeated by consciousness. Therefore, a rock has a level of consciousness. And therefore, if we were to create, and this is where the incongruence comes, right? Is like, okay, if we were to create an artificially intelligent being, a super intelligence, does that actually have a soul? Does it actually have consciousness?
Yeah.
Does that make us God, right? I think I'm coming around to the point where actually there's one thing is simulating consciousness versus it actually being conscious. That's one point. But the other point is actually, if there is a level of consciousness everywhere, then you're just peaking it at that particular point. And you're just fiddling with some knobs to tweak it up at that particular point. You're not actually creating it.
So it exists already.
It exists already. You're just amplifying it, right? So the way I see consciousness is from that spiritual perspective, is that we can imagine the whole cosmos being effectively an ocean, and in an ocean you have peaks and troughs of waves, and sometimes you get a wave, and that is a point at which there is a consciousness being created or being manifested, and then dissipates, and then another one replaces it. I think that's the way I see it, is we're creating things that eventually might be conscious. We might be able to call it life. I'm coming round to the point where I don't think that directly contradicts my spiritual beliefs about life and consciousness and God.
I'm imagining that, so coming back to kind of day-to-day CEO of a startup, and I've worked with quite a few startups. I understand the stresses and strains of that environment, especially being the CEO of that in a company in that environment. How does your spirituality help you with those stresses and strains?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's easy to forget. It's very easy to forget what those spiritual aspects are supposed to imbibe in you in your working life, right? So I've generally, up until recently, I've generally been able to partition, this is my working life and this is what I'm doing here, and that is a spiritual life and that is what we're doing there. Like I said, I'm not ultra religious or anything, but I was able to separate this. But actually, the things that we learn over here can be directly applied. And it only really occurred to me maybe a year and a half ago, when I was going through a very difficult time. It was still going through a difficult time in the company, right? It's been a very difficult time to raise money and that kind of thing. Where I've kind of just got to the point where I had a realization that actually I can do everything that I can do that is in my hands right now, right? But I can't worry about whether it's successful or not. I can just do what is in front of me, and I can plan for the future, but I cannot worry about the result because that's not entirely in my hands. That's up to the universe. And that's helped me not worry about things, right? What I worry about now is getting through my current workload, instead of worrying about what's going to happen if I do or don't do it. Right? So if we take away the future aspect of your workload, of the stress of what you're doing right now as a CEO of a startup, I'm sure there's, everyone's going through similar stuff at the moment. Forget about being ultra successful. Forget about whether you can get this funding round over the line, that kind of thing. do what you need to do right now in the present. Do your job right now, and take it one day as it comes, and you'll be able to get through it. And that's how I've been able to, not get myself into a bad situation in the past year and a half. And I say that, I know of 3 founders in the last 18 months who have actually committed suicide.
Wow.
And because they've just not been able to handle the stress. I didn't know them ultra well.
Yeah.
I would consider at least one of them an acquaintance or a friend. But it's if you don't have that mechanism to be able to cope, bad things can happen.
Yeah.
And you've got to be able to find your way, right? And my way is taking my spiritual learnings and applying them to work life. Actually, that's what it's for. It's not supposed to be partitioned. The whole point is that you apply it to your life. Your life means your work life, your family life, and everything else in between.
And I can definitely resonate with that. So in terms of stress and anxiety, that's kind of characterized, as you said, thinking about the future, worrying about the future. And so the antidote to that is being present, focusing on what I have to do today.
Yeah.
And in a similar vein, we were talking before about my karate, and you were asking me what the benefits of that are. One of the very many benefits are when you're practicing, you think of nothing else other than what you're doing at the time. Yeah. And I suppose it's a form of meditation, but it's being totally present. And when you are totally present, the anxieties, the stresses, they go away.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? It doesn't matter what the physical action is, whether it's a martial art or meditation or whatever it might be. It's your state of mind that defines, where you're at. Yeah. So actually, we should be really thinking about how to get that state of mind in the right place. That's a really important aspect. I don't think many people. Well, maybe things are changing now. I think there's a lot more.
I think a little bit.
Focus on mental awareness.
Yeah.
But traditionally, that hasn't been a thing, right?
No, and especially in the startup world.
Yeah.
It's a tough environment, and there's been a glorification certainly in the past around working hard, working super long hours. Do you still see that? Is it still a thing?
What the
kind of the glorification of the hustle?
Oh, 100%, 100%. If the number of founders or soon-to-be founders that I've spoken to over the last, let's say, 9-10 years, like I was one of them. The number of them that tend to focus on the tiny tail of the distribution, which is really successful, and people that you hear about all the time on social media or the news, not many people understand that actually that's the tiniest proportion that made it.
Yeah.
Everybody else, I would say quote unquote, I would say failed, but quote unquote didn't get to that level of success.
Yes.
Right? A large majority of them flaked out in year 1, 2, or 3, right? Even before year 1 was even complete. And again, I say flaked out in inverted quotes, I don't mean actually flaked out, but for whatever reason they weren't able to complete.
Yes. Yeah.
So a lot of them don't realise the extreme difficulty it takes to get even a simple idea off the ground. And if I find this a lot with people who have vocational degrees or have been in a particular job for a very, very long time. They have the comfort of being employed, of having a salary every month. They think they can do that part-time and then start a company and do that part-time and then realise actually that's just not, you just end up doing both really badly.
Yeah.
Not possible to do. So you pick one, okay, you're going to pick becoming a founder, suddenly no salary. You think you're going to raise money, you won't. You think you'll get clients. It will take a long, exactly. Yeah, it will take a very long time. You think you can get paying clients. It's harder than it sounds, even when it's with people you already know. It's not unless you already have, a couple of million quid in the bank account already that you can put in yourself, right? And many people do that, and they do see the road to success much earlier. It's a very difficult journey. People don't realise that. And I'm for Jiva, I'm in year 4.5, halfway through the 4th year, and yeah, we're still, me, Sarah, and Chet are still
the three co-founders.
The three co-founders, yeah, we're still working day and night and weekends and trying to get things to work. So it never stops. This thing never stops, and especially in a sector like AI, when there is so much happening, there's so much going on out there. People are trying to differentiate you from everybody else. Even you find yourself lost sometimes, right? Even I find myself like thinking, okay, well, how do I shape this so that people don't confuse us for this thing because we are different? Those are really difficult things to grapple at every day when the market is moving so quickly. You do feel, you got to. It's not just the work. You feel dismayed, at things that are happening across the pond in the US, where there's a lot more money swirling around, people getting there much, much quicker because of who they are, because of, they're a bit more vocal or whatever. And you think back and think, I should have done that. I should have done it that way, But it's a learning journey. It's fine. That's the kind of the whole point of having people around you and just learning along the way and changing things as you go along.
And talking of learning on the way, going back to the beginning at Jiva, you began as CTO, right, Chief Technology Officer. Before we go to the transition to CEO, what was the genesis moment, first of all, for creating Jiva?
So it wasn't a single moment. It was kind of over a number of years actually. Since 2014, Chet is he's a good friend from university, throwing 1,000 ideas at me every single day. Majority of them were crap, and I just started to shut the fuck up, just leave me alone. I've got stuff to do, and then the word analytics and big data came up at some point. We had a third person at the time, and we were banding around ideas about how we could play with analytics and that kind of thing. But the realization moment for us was that actually doing things with AI and machine learning and data science is really hard. I was the only technical person there, so I could do that stuff. But Chet couldn't do it because he's not a coder, all right? So that was the realization moment in step one, which is, okay, how do we make this easier to do for everyone? And then how do we bring in this idea that actually, rather than looking at singular small problems, and we were looking very much at healthcare at the time, rather than looking at singular small diagnostic problems, let's say, how do you think about things more widely, and how do you make that intelligence grow when you discover new information? And that happens with healthcare all the time. You have a small piece of information, you've got to make some kind of decision on it, but then you'll discover new information as you're going along. Well, how does your prediction, how does your model change as you're discovering those new things? We didn't really have those mechanics yet at the time, and so that's what we built within Jiva is firstly this ability to create data science and machine learning problems without having to be an expert in doing it, and then secondly, how to do this multimodal thing. How do you get different pieces together to grow your AI rather than
multimodal being different data sources from in different media?
Yeah. There's a definition there. So what everyone currently in the market defines as multimodal is exactly what you said. You have different types of data, and you plug them all into a model, and that model makes a prediction based on all those different types of data. We're similar in that we're still multimodal, but what we're trying to say is actually it's better to build smaller models on each of those modalities, or small batches of those modalities, and then merge them together. Because what happens is you'll discover modalities as you're going along. And what you don't want to do is start all over again, rebuild all over again. You want to keep growing your intelligence. You don't want to start from scratch every single time you discover something new. So that's the technology we built, is this way of merging stuff together.
So coming then to the transition from CTO to CEO, how did that come about?
So initially when we started the company, it was me, Chet and Sarah, and I'll be honest, the one thing I didn't want to do was fundraise and interact with shareholders and do all of that commercial stuff. I just wanted to create. So I was CTO, and we hired for a CEO role. We actually had a CEO for a short amount of time who, that was just before COVID. So when COVID hit, that all went to tatters, basically. So we didn't have anyone leading the company. And I remember my chairman at the time said, look, Manny, it's got to be you. It's got to be a founder. It's got to be someone who understands the product, who understands the vision. You're just going to have to learn how to do it. So I remember thinking at the time when he told me, shortly before I had a call with both Chet and Sarah, was that I didn't, because I was, I don't like to talk about levels of higher and lower. That's not what I'm trying to say. Founders obviously all, on the same level. I didn't want to be in a position where now I'm telling my co-founders how to do things and what to do, which is basically what a CEO would have to engage in at some point, right? It's obviously, leadership is not just about telling people what to do, but sometimes you just have to make a decision that has to go that particular way. I was somewhat uncomfortable with that. I was even more uncomfortable with doing pitches. Oh my God, I was so nervous, to go in front of people and pitch. We were doing a accelerator at the time called KQ Labs over near King's Cross, and at the end of it in March there was a demo day where you'd have to do a pitch, an investor pitch to 150, 200 odd people, something to that, like that. So I was super nervous for that. I remember thinking, I don't know if I can do this. I was getting really nervous about it. It's exactly what I didn't want to do in this company. I wanted to build, right? But I got thrust into it, and I understood, actually, it's very hard to get someone in, even if you could pay them, it's very hard to get someone in from external. Teach them to have the same passion as you. You can't teach passion, right? You have that yourself. And all us co-founders have that passion for what we're doing.
And also the technical knowledge.
And it's the technical knowledge, yeah. So having all of that together was very hard to have in one person, especially from external. So I understood that, okay, that was a challenge. And
it sounds like you kind of almost had to sacrifice the desire to create in favour of the need that you knew was there to lead the company. Yeah,
I had to sacrifice what I wanted to be and wanted to do to be able to do that side of things. That said, looking back on it, I'm very happy doing what I do now. I'm very happy that I'm not didn't carry on being CTO and carry on doing those kind of things purely from a non-decision making, non-kind of commercial perspective. I actually really enjoy what I do now. But at the time, it felt like I was making a shift because I was forced to rather than because I wanted to. But that changed pretty quickly. As we were going along with the right people around me, it was Chet and Sarah's support, Kevin's support, chairman at the time. Going through that process, it took maybe the whole of those 3 lockdowns that we had that year. To get my head around how to actually do it. I'm still learning. I'm still not doing it right. I still don't think I think I'm probably somewhere between 40 and 50% kind of efficient as a CEO. So I'm still learning along the way. Right?
What insecurities did you have at the time about being the CEO?
I had massive imposter syndrome. Massive. I didn't feel I deserved to be there. I didn't feel like I deserved to be able to lead the company. I don't think I could do it. I'm still now, even like talking about it now, I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm talking about myself. I don't like to be that person. But CEOs do have to have...
Sorry, the person that talks about themselves.
Yeah. CEOs do have to have that level of, let's say, call it positive ego, a level of pride, a level of self-belief. You see that in all CEOs that are successful, right? I mean, a typical example, like Elon Musk is a massive egomaniac. But even other CEOs, they have a certain level of ego, a certain level of self-confidence, and just such passion about what they're doing. It's not just about actually self-confidence, it's about actually just believing their way is the right way.
Yeah.
Even when they're wrong.
Even when they're
right. I find that really hard. I find that really hard to replicate. And I was very uncomfortable.
Yeah. And are you trying to replicate the way other people?
No. I think it's
4 years ago when you stepped up to CEO. Were you trying?
Okay. Yeah. So actually, initially, yes. Like you look at all these other CEOs and other people I met in my network, and the people I met at KG Labs, for example, while I was there. A few of them in my own cohort in that accelerator. There are a couple of female founders, which I'm still, at least one of them, I'm still friends with. I actually really admired from a distance. I thought that they've got such confidence. They really know how to plan something out. They really know how to do this, and I felt I was completely inadequate from that perspective. How do I replicate that? But then over the last 3 years, I think I've just kind of discovered that I've got to be my own person, and I've got to do it my own way. Public perception is one thing, but you can achieve public perception without being a dickhead. And I'm not saying that there's people are dickheads, by the way. I'm just saying, there's a certain level of self-confidence that you have to
but the insecurity that I'm kind of hearing now is I don't want to be a dickhead when I'm promoting myself, when I'm talking about myself, when I'm talking about the company. There's a balance.
There's a balance to it. I'm super conscious of it now. Like literally, while I'm talking about it with you right now, the last 10 minutes, in my head, I'm thinking, Chet and Sarah are going to listen to this. Are they going to think I'm being a dickhead for saying it like the way I said it? I'm really conscious of that. I don't want to be that person, but at some level I have to be that person to get to a particular point. It's funny. I was just at a wedding in May and June in Mexico. My nephew was getting married, and I was sitting with some of my nephews and nieces. My son was there, and he's only 12, and I can't remember what the conversation was. We were all in the pool. I can't remember what the conversation was, but it was it somehow got to the point of what is it to be someone of significance or something to do with that. And I was like, look, life, it doesn't matter whether you're a CEO, CTO, or you're working for someone, or you're a single at-home, stay-at-home dad, or whatever it might be. It doesn't matter what you are, who you are. There's a really simple equation in life. It is, don't be a dickhead. That's basically it. Just don't be a twat. It's everyone knows what it's like to be a good person. You know when you're being not a good person. Something inside you is telling you that's not quite right.
And I think where a lot of people or bosses, leaders fall into that trap is there's a difference between being firm, robust, and being a dickhead. You can be firm, robust, and be kind at the same time. But I think there's a perception or misapprehension that you're either one or the other. You can't be both.
I think people respect when you can do both of those things, and people respect your authority more if you're kind when you need to be kind, and soft when you need to be soft, and actually be hard when you actually really do need to be hard. I think that it's a hard balance. That's a hard. Like again, I'm being really conscious about what I'm saying. having that balance between knowing that you have the authority to do something, but keeping your feet on the ground whilst knowing it, that's actually really difficult. That's a really difficult balance to achieve, right?
Yeah.
Because the moment, like I'm very conscious of it. The moment I'm in a situation where someone, like I might be in a team call or something, someone says something, and one of my thoughts is, does he not respect me, or does she not respect me for saying that? Well, break that down. If you're feeling that someone has disrespected you and it's made you angry about something, it probably means you have an ego to bruise in the first place. So take away the ego element and just say, okay, well, why are they doing that particular thing, and let's address that more directly. And that's how you approach it.
It's not personal. It's not about you. It's about
exactly.
And that's a trap we all fall into, isn't it?
Everyone does.
We think it's about me, but it's
I change the context. I do that with my kids all the time. The number of times I scream at my kids for doing something, or not listening to me.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But again, that's my ego. Why are you not listening to your dad?
Yeah.
That's an ego thing. Maybe they're not listening because I keep shouting at them.
That's possible. That's possible. I was going to ask about being CEO, being a dad, being a parent. I always think about parenting. We both have two kids, fairly similar ages. I think about parenting in the context of failure. We do a lot of things right, I know, but we do a lot of things wrong. Micro things wrong, day after day after day. It's like it's a rapid failure, day after day after day. So how do you failure is also important in business, in life. So how do you think about that?
So you've got to, okay, I'm a shit dad. I think I could be much better.
Is that you being modest, or is that?
No, I definitely think I could be better.
Yeah.
I'm 40 to 50% being efficient CEO. I think I'm 20 to 30% being an efficient dad. Similarly, I think I was at that level as a husband. I think that's got much better over time. Some of that is just admitting that the situation you find yourself in is your own bloody fault. You've put yourself in that situation, and even if there are external circumstances that have created it, you could have handled it better. So I there's not a single instance that I can think of where I've had a massive blowout with my wife, or I've screamed at my kids, or something's happened, or with my parents. My parents live with us, right? So that's a whole other volatile situation. But when I've had arguments with my mum, I can't think of a single time where I can't blame myself for something that's been in the run up to that situation. So it's about admitting that actually you have a responsibility in everything. So why don't you just take care of the things that you can control, and try to mitigate those, and things will get better.
This is coming right back to almost where we began, that kind of spiritual, holistic thinking about it.
Yeah, just doing the things that are in your control, and leaving the rest to the universe. And with my wife, it's really simple. She works at home for 3 or 4 days of the week. 1 or 2 days of the week she'll be in the city, and I make a point of I'm going to take a break. She doesn't do that, by the way. She'll work from 8:30 to 4 o'clock when the kids need to be picked up or whatever, and then she'll carry on. And sometimes she carries on until 2 or 3 in the morning.
Wow.
She's got tunnel vision when it comes to her work. But I'll take a break now and again. I'll go upstairs, give her a hug, a kiss, and that's actually enough. And and we're happy. Touch wood. Gonna have a blowout tonight now. That we're happy with that. We've found our balance, and I'm conscious of it now. That I'm conscious of it when it happens. When we're in a car or something happens, and I say something, I know that instant I shouldn't have said that, because I've caused a situation, and I didn't have to cause it.
Yeah.
Right? I've commented on her driving. That happens all the time. She doesn't like to admit it, but she's a shit driver. But if I say something, man, that's you're planting the seed of an argument like that. Similarly with my kids. So I forgot the point of the question. But
it's about failure and kind of thinking about failure in a kind of a holistic.
Yeah. So there were two aspects. I was talking about causes of failure, which is usually me, right? Or I have some hand in failure, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing is how you just handle it.
How do you? Yeah.
Yeah. And failure is going to happen. You're going to fail as a startup founder. You're going to fail all the time with your team, with investment, with decisions that you make, the networks that you put yourselves in, the way you talk to people, the way you present something, the way you do your pitch, everything, you're going to fail spectacularly, right? Learn from it. And know you got to know what you have to be true to. One of the major points I think some founders find themselves in, they do a pitch deck, right? So you have a 10-slide deck, 10 or 12-slide deck, and
this is a presentation.
And you put that in front of investors and you go through it, and you can ask 100 people feedback for your deck. You will get 100 different opinions.
Sure.
Guaranteed. And you'll have arguments inside your team or with your other founders, about how that should change because you haven't been able to raise.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes you just have to go with your gut and say, okay, this is what I believe in, this is what I think is the right thing to do, and just go with it. Right? Just be confident about it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's, okay, there's multiple failures here. Maybe it's time to learn from that and switch things around. And that decision making, I don't think that can be taught. I think you have to be grounded enough to recognize it and just action it when it's something you've got to action. There's no hard and fast kind of logic that I can give you around that, and I'm still probably doing it wrong. I don't know. There's no logic around it.
You talked about gut instinct there, or intuition. That's a really interesting thing for me, because I feel like we have so much wisdom kind of within us that we often completely ignore. We don't listen to that little voice. That's the voice of the truth and wisdom. And I'm wondering, coming back to the spirituality part of things as well, I wonder whether that helps you access that part of you that is the kind of is the wisdom, is the intuition part.
Yeah. So intuition, or just kind of knowing without knowing which steps to take. Sometimes that's random. Sometimes that's your mind pushing you in a particular way because you have a subconscious bias to go a particular way. So I think sometimes intuition gets confused. The word intuition gets confused with those things. But I think you're right. I do rely on something inside to tell me whether that's the right thing to do at that particular time. I've never said this publicly, I often find myself in a difficult situation, so like say a conversation where I'll say to inside, I'll just say, please help me, big man upstairs, or big they upstairs. Help me out in the situation. And I try to manifest that. Do you have to create the environment in which to be able to listen to what the big they upstairs is? That's your own construct. That's your own mind construct, isn't it? You could be in a burning building with people screaming around you, but what you are thinking is entirely between your ears. It's that's where it's low. So you can create your own construct to make that a thing, right? And you might end up showing it in the form of just looking a bit dim for a few seconds, and which I often do. As part of a conversation, I'll just be like, "Oh, it looks like I've switched off, but actually I'm just We do it on our Zoom calls. You see me just looking out the window because my window's on my left-hand side. But actually, I'm just trying to access
that part of you,
a recess in my mind that I can actually just get the right answers out of.
Yeah.
So you have to learn how to create that construct in your brain. And if you can do it in a really highly stressful situation, like a difficult board meeting or a difficult conversation with the employee, where there's been
or a fight with your wife,
or a fight, yeah. That's the hardest one. So when you're
that's interesting. Being so kind of being in the moment, if you want to call it like that, when you're having a blazing row with your wife is harder than it is with employee or board meeting.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because I think the stakes are so much higher. Right? It's not like I'm afraid my wife will ever leave me, but I dread not having a pleasant evening with the family because there's been an argument. I have to avoid eye contact and avoid conversation.
Yes.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's my fault.
Yeah.
I've said something, or anger is one of those things, right? That it's like dousing fuel on fire. That you can easily fly off the handle, and once you've reached that point where you flew off the handle, you got angry, you're saying stuff that you don't even really mean anymore.
Yes.
Like you haven't really thought about what you're saying, and it's only after 5 minutes or 10 minutes of cooling down that you think, oh, that was a really stupid thing to say. And by that time, it's too late.
Yeah.
I do that all the time. I still haven't learned that lesson, which is why I'm still 20 to 30% as a dad.
So coming back to the kind of board meeting or difficult conversation with an employee, the skill, if you want to call it that, is to be able to access what you need in that stressful moment.
Yeah, and it might not come to me. That's okay. I'll give you an example, all right, where it failed me completely. Where I had a meeting, I won't say any names, I had a meeting with an investor that was already on our cap table, and it was a very, very negative call. Why aren't you doing this right? Blah, 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 blah. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you making more revenue? You know, there's all sorts of very difficult questions to answer. But I wish I'd just said what was on my mind at the time, which is, I just need your support right now. I don't need a gazillion questions. I'm not an expert. I haven't done this a gazillion times. No one has been in the position that we've been in because we're in a particular company with a unique set of circumstances in a unique time in the market. All I need is you to be a support. I wish I just said that, because then it would just nip the entire conversation in the bud, right?
So that was your intuition telling you that was what you needed to say, but
but I failed to say it. I failed to listen to it. I tried to answer the questions more directly and logically. Everyone, look, you build a business, you build relationships, you build whatever you're doing in life. You're always interacting with people, consciousness. People are emotional. You've got to have that connection. So even investment is 60% emotional connection and 40% logic. And there might be some certain things that you fail on the logical bit, but getting to that 60% of just developing rapport and getting them to like you, that's purely human. Yeah, it's purely human. Yeah, and that's the same situation. The same thing with all of these situations. So I think, listen to that inner intuition, act on it. It's fine, so long as you know that it's actually intuition and not bias that your mind is constructed. But know that actually that situation is a construct of your mind. Right? You frame yourself in that situation. Someone put it in a really good. I can't remember the exact words they used. It was something like the universe is a reflection of your mind. That's basically the meaning. Sorry, that's basically paraphrasing a little bit. The universe is a reflection of your mind, meaning you are interpreting all these external stimuli into your head,
Yeah.
and you are reacting to it.
Yeah.
You are creating the situation that you yourself are in.
Yes. Our experience is created by our thinking.
Yeah, and you can
how we act, how we behave, is as a direct result of those thoughts that we've latched onto.
Yeah, it's up to you. So if I find myself in an argument, I can either take that really negatively and go down a downward spiral, or I can try to turn it around and make it more positive and try to just nip it in the bud. I'm not saying I can do that. I'm just saying that's if you think of it that way, it becomes much easier to handle.
Yeah. In all human interactions.
Yeah.
I'm coming full circle. I wonder if we are able to replicate or create general intelligence in the way that we were talking about before. Whether simulated conscious creations will be able to act, to behave, to think in the way that we think. It seems
that's what you
almost impossible to me.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you believe consciousness actually is. Intelligence is not the same as consciousness.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
You can be intelligent but not conscious. Like ChatGPT, it looks intelligent, acts intelligent.
Yeah.
It's not conscious.
Yeah.
Not actually intelligent either. But
Yes. So we talked before, the distinction may be between artificial intelligence and artificial consciousness.
Yeah. There's two different things. One, and then actually one is a symptom of the other. Intelligence is a symptom of consciousness. What is real consciousness? I can't tell you. I don't know. That's too much of a philosophical question for me. But if we were able to create a machine that is able to, if I was able to create a machine that perfectly simulated me, even if it's simulated, what does it matter? If it's thinking like me and reacting like me and doing the same things as me and thinking about itself, thinking, well, maybe if I change the way I think about things, then things will be better. If it thinks like that, then, it's the same as consciousness.
That would be an extraordinary, for me, an extraordinary creation, but I don't know, a frightening one as well.
Exciting.
An exciting one. Okay. We will leave it there, I think. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Appreciate it.
It's been a really great chat.
Likewise.
Appreciate
thank you.
it.